Chapter 2961. A huge sum of money. Take a look. With that, Shuedong King walked forward. Lord Xianxia, we have obtained a treasure. We would like you to determine its value, Shuedong King said. Sure. The golden light shadow nodded. Brother Heavenly Maskis, take out the divine earth fruit, Shuedong King said. Jian Wushuang took out the divine earth fruit without hesitation. The golden light shadow glanced at the divine earth fruit and already had the result. The divine earth fruit is very useful for cultivators who are comprehending the earth rules, especially those below the Master of Laws. It is enough to make many immortal saints who are comprehending the laws fight for it. Even some top immortal saints would covet it. This treasure is very valuable and very rare. You can choose to keep it or exchange it for me. But if you choose to keep it, you have to pay a fee of 500,000 sacred elixirs. The golden light shadow said. Appraisal fee? 500,000 sacred elixirs? Jian Wushuang was stunned. Brother Heavenly Marquis, you need to pay an appraisal fee to ask Lord Xianxia to appraise a treasure in the treasure pavilion. The higher the value of the treasure, the higher the appraisal fee. However, if you choose to exchange this treasure for Lord Xianxia will help you appraise it for free, said Shuedong King. Is that so? Jian Wushuang understood. Sir Xianxia, the divine earth fruit is of no use to us, so I'll exchange it for you directly. But how many saint elixirs can I exchange for this treasure? Shuedong King asked. Sir Xianxia pondered for a moment and then said, 100 million. 100 million. Hearing this number, Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King were stunned. They looked at each other with a trace of shock in their eyes. 100 million? 100 million sacred elixirs? They had guessed that the divine earth fruit was very valuable, otherwise, the Starseed Saint would not have come to fight for it. However, they estimated that the divine earth fruit was only worth about 20 to 30 million sacred elixirs. It was already very good that it was worth more than 30 million sacred elixirs. However, it was obvious that they had underestimated the value of the divine earth fruit. This earth god kingdom was an excellent treasure used to comprehend the laws of the earth. Many true saint experts who were proficient in the laws of the earth and had great strength coveted this treasure. How could its value be ordinary? 100 million sacred pills. This is because we are only ordinary members, right? Shuedong Wang said. Yes. Lord Xianxia directly nodded. According to the rules of the Treasure Pavilion of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, the higher the level of the members, the more authority they have. Whether you buy it in the Treasure Pavilion, there are certain benefits. For example, if you buy the same treasure, ordinary members must pay 100 of the sacred elixirs, but Earth-level members only need to pay 90, and Heaven-level members only need to pay 80, and so on. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. Now he finally knew the benefits of being a high-level member. It's true that you can only get 100 million sacred elixirs if you exchange the divine earth fruit for me with your authority as an ordinary member. But if you become an earth-level member in the future and exchange the divine earth fruit for me, you can get 10 million more sacred elixirs. As for your choice, it's up to you, Lord Xianxia said. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King immediately began to discuss. Shuedong King, what do you think? Jian Wushuang asked. You've seen the 3-star mission this time. With my strength, it will be a bit stressful to complete 3-3-star missions alone. I'm afraid it will take some time for me to successfully become an Earth-level member. But if I can get this sacred elixir, I can exchange it for a lot of good things. Then my strength will improve a lot, and the speed of completing the mission will be faster. So, I hope to exchange for this divine earth fruit now. What about you? Shuedong King looked over. I think so too. Jian Wushuang smiled. Even if they waited until the Earth-level members went to exchange, they would only get 10 million more sacred elixirs. If they split the money, they would each get 5 million more sacred elixirs. 5 million sacred elixirs were not as important as 100 million sacred elixirs. Of course, they did not need to wait so long. Sir Xianxia, we have decided to exchange for the divine earth fruit now, Jian Wushuang said. Okay. Sir Xianxia nodded slightly. With a flip of his hand, the divine earth fruit disappeared from his hand. Now you have 100 million sacred elixirs. If you divide the 100 million sacred elixirs equally, each of you will get 50 million sacred elixirs. You can choose to buy treasures from me or get ready-made sacred elixirs. Within 10 days, someone will deliver the sacred elixirs to you. Let's take a look at the treasures first, Jian Wushuang said with a smile. What a joke. The treasure pavilion of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance was the only one in the divine beginning world. How vast was the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance? It was not surprising that 99 of the treasures in the divine beginning world should be available in the treasure pavilion, as long as there were some. However, one needed a certain level of authority to exchange for them. Although they were only ordinary members, there were still some extraordinary items that ordinary members could exchange for. You can tell me what kind of treasures you want. Lord Qianshou's tone was cold and emotionless. Brother Qianhu, this is your first time in the treasure pavilion. You can go first, said Shuedong King. Jian Wushuang did not stand on ceremony. After pondering for a moment, he said directly, Lord Qianshou, I first need some treasures that can help me accumulate divine power. Treasures that can accumulate divine power? You mean treasures that can refine and help you reach the highest level of divine power in a short time? Sir Qianshou asked. Yes, I haven't cultivated for a long time. In the past, I relied on absorbing the pure power of the sacred elixir to increase my divine power. But now that I'm at a higher level, I need more and more divine power. Absorbing the sacred elixir alone costs a lot of sacred elixirs, and the effect is even weaker, Jian Wushuang said. You've been absorbing the sacred elixir to increase your divine power? Lord Qianshou looked at Jian Wushuang in surprise. Brother Heavenly Marquis. Shuedong King was also quite surprised. Why, is it strange? Jian Wushuang asked curiously. Of course it's strange, Shuedong King said directly. Brother Heavenly Marquis, first of all, you should know that the sacred elixir is mainly used as a currency in the beginning divine world. Secondly, it's used to absorb and refine. Even if it's really used to absorb and refine divine power into your own, the process is very complicated and long. Under normal circumstances, very few people do this. Even if they do this, many people are helpless. But you've been absorbing and refining the power of the sacred elixir to increase your divine power. This is a waste. Chapter 2962, Divine Power Fruit a Waste? Jian Wushuang was stunned. It is indeed a waste, Lord Qianshou said. If you need to accumulate and improve your divine power, there are divine power fruits in my treasure pavilion that are specially used to improve your divine power. These divine power fruits are available at all levels and are tailored to the needs of different levels. You are only a divine master now, so ordinary divine power fruits should be enough for you. How much divine power does an ordinary divine power fruit contain? Jian Wushuang asked. One is worth 100,000 sacred elixirs, and it's even purer. As for the price, I can exchange 10,000 sacred elixirs for an ordinary divine power fruit, Lord Qianshou said. One is worth 100,000 sacred elixirs, and the price is only 10,000 sacred elixirs? Jian Wushuang was stunned. He finally understood that Lord Qianshou and Shuedong King would say that he had wasted it. It was more than a waste, it was a waste of a treasure. Damn, I've absorbed so many saint elixirs. If I exchange them all for divine power fruits. Jian Wushuang looked strange, but then he said seriously, Lord Qianshou, an ordinary divine power fruit is worth 100,000 saint elixirs. What about a higher level one? A higher level one has an earth level divine power fruit. It's more than enough for an ordinary false saint or a weaker true saint. As for its effect, one is worth about 3 million sacred elixirs. It's worth 100,000 sacred elixirs, Sir Qianshou said. Jian Wushuang's heart trembled, but he was pleasantly surprised. He was surprised that he had been too wasteful. He was happy with the effect of the earth-level divine power fruit. One fruit was equivalent to absorbing 3 million sacred elixirs. How much divine power was that? I'm not too far away from the peak of the great divine master. According to what I thought before, I should be able to break through after absorbing at most 20 million sacred elixirs. But now, this divine power fruit. Jian Wushuang's eyes flashed with a strange light. He immediately said, Lord Qianshou, give me 20 earth-grade divine power fruits first. 20? Sir Xianxia raised his eyebrows. Shuedong King looked at Jian Wushuang in surprise and said, Brother Heavenly Marquis, one Earth-grade divine power fruit is equivalent to absorbing 3 million sacred elixirs. 20 is the divine power of 60 million sacred elixirs. Why do you need so many? I have my uses. Jian Wushuang did not explain much. Earth-grade divine power fruit, 100,000 sacred elixirs per fruit. 20 would be 2 million sacred elixirs. You still have 48 million sacred elixirs left, Lord Xianxia said. Lord Xianxia, I need a special sword formation. I don't know if you have it, Jian Wushuang said. Sword formation? What sword formation? Lord Xianxia looked over. The reincarnation sword formation was created by an expert named Sword Master Tongxin. Sword Master Tongxin was almost invincible among the immortal saints when he was alive. He created a total of 12 reincarnation sword formations. Jian Wushuang explained the information of the reincarnation sword formation in detail. The Samsara sword formation had been of great help to him since he got it. He had comprehended the space-time and reincarnation rules at the same time. In terms of the space-time rules, the swordsmanship he created was focused on space-time. In terms of the reincarnation rules, he relied on the Samsara sword formation to perfectly displaying his comprehension of the reincarnation rules. However, he had only obtained the first 4 layers of the Samsara sword formation. He could now use the 4th layer of the Ice and Snow world, and he could also use its strongest power T this time. Of course, he was eager to get more powerful sword formations. Wait a moment. Lord Xianxia immediately began to investigate. There was nothing he could do. There were too many treasures in the treasure pavilion. Take the Samsara sword formation for example. There were hundreds of sword formations in the treasure pavilion that were also named after Samsara. Even if Lord Xianxia was the treasure spirit of the treasure pavilion, he had to check carefully. A moment later, he looked at Jian Wushuang again. I found it. The reincarnation sword formation you asked for does exist in the treasure pavilion, and it has a complete 12 sword formations. Among the 12 sword formations, the first 4 require the permission of an ordinary member, but the middle 4 require the permission of an earth-level member. As for the strongest sword formation, the last 4 require the permission of a heaven-level member. Jian Wushuang was stunned. He already had the first 4 levels of the 12 Samsara sword formations, so he naturally needed the middle 4 levels. However, he did not expect the middle 4 levels to have such high authority. They needed the earth level, and the last 4 levels needed the authority of a heaven-level member. However, Jian Wushuang thought about it carefully and could understand. Sword Master Tongxin was, after all, an almost invincible immortal saint. His strength was extremely terrifying, and the Samsara sword formation he created was the basis of his fame. It was extremely powerful, which could be seen from the first 4 levels alone. It was normal for such a powerful sword formation to have a higher exchange authority. Lord Xianxia, how many sacred elixirs do you need to exchange for the middle 4 levels of the Samsara sword formation? Jian Wushuang asked. 15 million. Lord Xianxia said. Jian Wushuang nodded secretly. 1,500 sacred elixirs were not too expensive to exchange for the middle 4 levels of the Samsara sword formation. Since I can't exchange for the medium 4 sword formation now, forget it. Anyway, with my current strength, it shouldn't be difficult for me to become an Earth-level member. I can keep these sacred lands for now. When I become an Earth-level member in the future, I can exchange for them. Jian Wushuang smiled. However, although I can't exchange for the sword formation, I can exchange for the magic weapons that drive the sword formation. Previously, Jian Wushuang had used 18 Netherblood Divine Swords to drive the sword formation. Each of the 18 Netherblood Divine Swords was a top-tier heavenly treasure, and their power was extraordinary. However, as Jian Wushuang's strength continued to increase, it was difficult for him to satisfy his needs with just the top-tier heavenly treasures. The most important thing was that he had received a huge sum of 50 million sacred elixirs in one go, which made him very confident. In order to increase the power of the reincarnation sword formation, he really wanted to exchange the 18 Netherblood Divine Swords again. Sir Xianxia, I need a set of standard divine weapons of the Holy Treasure level, all of which are divine swords. The size should be based on the Netherblood Divine Sword in my hand. It would be even better if I have a divine weapon of the holy treasure level. Jian Wushuang took out Netherblood Divine Sword. I don't have a divine weapon of the holy treasure level in my treasure pavilion, but I can find a replacement for it. As for the price, it's 200,000 for an ordinary third-grade divine weapon, 600,000 for an advanced third-grade divine weapon, and 1,500,000 for a superior third-grade divine weapon. You can choose one yourself, Sir Xianxia said. Of course, Jian Wushuang would prefer a superior third-grade standard magic weapon of 1.5 million. However, he needed a total of 18 such standard magic weapons. If he had 1.5 million each, it would add up to 27 million sacred elixirs. Chapter 2963, Supreme Divine Master Expensive, Too Expensive. Jian Wushuang secretly praised. However, he also knew that a standard magic weapon of the third-grade superior holy treasure level would be much more powerful than an ordinary standard magic weapon of the third-grade holy treasure level. The Divine Earth Fruit has given me 50 million sacred elixirs at one go. In addition to the reward I got from completing the 3-star mission with the Shuedong King and the reward I got after killing the 3 Saint Shadows, I have a lot of sacred elixirs. Even if I have to leave 15 million sacred elixirs for the middle 4 forms of the reincarnation sword formation, I still have a lot left. If you want to buy the best. Jian Wushuang's eyes lit up and he immediately looked at the golden light figure in front of him. Sir Xianxia, I've decided to buy a standard magic weapon of the third-grade superior holy treasure level with 1,500,000 sacred elixirs each. I want 18 of them. 18 of them means 27 million sacred elixirs. In addition to the 2 million you used to buy the divine power fruit, you still have 21 million sacred elixirs, Sir Xianxia said. I also need some treasures that are useful for comprehending the rules of space-time and reincarnation, which can help me to comprehend them, Jian Wushuang said. He already had 3 heaven sealing maps, which had been very helpful to him in comprehending the rules. However, the heaven sealing maps only allowed him to use the profound mysteries of heaven and earth to deduce and comprehend faster. However, there were some special treasures in heaven and earth that consumed energy, which was very helpful in comprehending the rules. The divine earth fruit, for example, belonged to such a treasure, but it was obviously of a higher level. Lord Xianxia quickly organized an inventory and handed it to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang carefully browsed through it and selected a few treasures. In this way, he spent another 4 million sacred elixirs, leaving only 17 million sacred elixirs. He planned to keep the 17 million sacred elixirs until he became an Earth-level member. You can wait in this nest for a while. The things you want and the remaining sacred elixirs will be delivered to you in 10 days, Lord Xianxia said. I understand. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly, looking forward to it. Next, it was time for Shuedong King to choose the treasures. Shuedong King could also get 50 million sacred elixirs, so he had to make full use of them. In the end, he also chose several treasures and used 2 secret skills, spending nearly 40 million sacred elixirs. It could be said that they had squandered a lot of their sacred elixirs. After selecting the sacred elixirs, they waited quietly in the nest. Sure enough, on the 5th day, someone delivered the things they had brought to them. Then, they went to find a place to cultivate in seclusion. In the secret chamber, Jian Wushuang sat quietly with his legs crossed. In front of him were purple fruits that emitted a delicate fragrance. The fruit was not big, only the size of an infant's fist. However, it contained a lot of pure divine power. Is this the divine power fruit? Looking at the purple fruits in front of him, Jian Wushuang's eyes shone with a strange light. After hesitating for a long time, he finally reached out his hand, grabbed one of the divine power fruits, and swallowed it. The divine power fruit melted as soon as it entered Jian Wushuang's stomach and turned into a vast amount of pure divine power that flowed in his body. There was too much divine power and it was too vast. Indeed, just as Lord Xianxia said, an earth-level divine power fruit has a vast amount of pure divine power. Consuming one fruit is equivalent to absorbing 3 million sacred elixirs. Jian Wushuang's eyes sparkled with surprise. He immediately began to refine the divine power fruit, and in less than an hour, the pure power contained in the divine power fruit had been completely absorbed by him. He could clearly sense that the divine power in his body had increased by a level compared to before. At this speed, I'm afraid that I won't need more than a few divine power fruits before the accumulation of divine power in my body reaches its peak. Jian Wushuang was a little excited and immediately began to consume the remaining divine power fruits. 1, 2, 5. Jian Wushuang had spent 2 million sacred elixirs to exchange for 20 divine power fruits from Lord Xianxia. However, in reality, he did not need 20 divine power fruits at all. Just by consuming the 7th divine power fruit, Jian Wushuang's divine power had exceeded his limit and he had broken through the bottleneck. Yes, Jian Wushuang had broken through. He had broken through from an advanced divine master to a peak divine master. This step was only a small realm, but it still greatly improved Jian Wushuang's strength. Jian Wushuang stood proudly on a vast sea, and in front of him was a small island that was only a few hundred miles in size. Looking at the island, Jian Wushuang's body began to surge with divine power. He did not use any swordsmanship or any techniques. He just formed a palm with one hand and clapped it forward. The palm contained divine power that had reached the level of a peak great divine master. Boom! The sky and earth changed color. The palm was infinitely enlarged and covered the entire island. As the palm descended, the small island in the middle of the sea, which was only a few hundred miles wide, was crushed. The earth trembled and countless waves were swept up crazily, and in the blink of an eye, the island had disappeared. Such power! Jian Wushuang's eyes were shining. He did not use any means at all. He just relied on divine power to easily crush the island in front of him. This was impossible before he made the breakthrough. In terms of the strength of my divine power, I'm now 6 or 7 times stronger than an advanced great divine master. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands. Although the increase of 6 or 7 times might not necessarily mean that Jian Wushuang's overall strength had also increased by 6 or 7 times, his battle strength had greatly increased. At this moment, Jian Wushuang moved his mind. Swish! 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 Streaks of gray streamers rushed out. These gray streamers shuttled rapidly in the void. It was impossible to see the specific trajectory of their convergence with the naked eye. However, under Jian Wushuang's control, in just a moment, the streaks of gray streamers floated in front of him and stopped. These streams of gray light were actually gray magic swords. Each of these gray magic swords was only about 2 feet long. The edges of the swords were very thin, but they contained the power of reincarnation and the aura of a treasure. They were extremely powerful. There was a faint gray airflow around the swords. It felt like a gray fog. Chapter 2964. Strength skyrocketed. This gray magic sword was called the Starluo sword. It was a 3rd grade superior holy treasure grade magic weapon that Jian Wushuang had exchanged for 1.5 million sacred elixirs from Lord Xianxia. A total of 18 Starluo swords floated in front of Jian Wushuang. In order to control 18 superior holy treasures at the same time, one had to have a very strong soul. Secondly, controlling 18 3rd grade superior holy treasures and controlling 18 superior holy treasures were 2 completely different things in terms of strength consumption. Even if an ordinary immortal saint wanted to control 18 superior 3rd grade holy treasures at the same time, his divine power would be exhausted in 2 or 3 moves. Although Jian Wushuang was only a divine master, his divine power was too vast. It was far beyond what the immortal saint could compare with. Controlling 18 superior 3rd grade holy treasures at the same time did not pose too much pressure to him. It's also the 4th sword formation of the Samsara sword formation. I'd like to see the difference between using 18 3rd grade superior holy treasures and 18 superior heavenly treasures. With a hint of curiosity, Jian Wushuang immediately controlled the 18-star Luo swords in front of him and combined them at the fastest speed. The 18-star Luo swords combined to form a Cyan Divine Sword that was less than 2 meters long. The Cyan Divine Sword was filled with the power of the law of reincarnation. Even before it flew out, its terrifying aura alone was enough to make an ordinary immortal saint despair. Go! Jian Wushuang pointed at it from afar. The Cyan Divine Sword turned into a cyan arc light and instantly rushed out. Whoosh! The arc light traveled over 10,000 meters and mercilessly lifted up 2 huge waves wherever it passed. However, the cyan arc light was unstoppable and destroyed everything in front of it. The ear-piercing sound of the void-piercing explosion was even louder. In the end, the green arc light did not directly hit the material body. It only penetrated the void. The specific power had not been fully displayed, but Jian Wushuang already had a vague idea of what it was. If my senses are correct, using 18 superior third-grade holy treasures to perform a move of the Samsara sword formation, ice and snow world, is about 10 times more powerful than using superior heavenly treasures previously. Jian Wushuang's eyes flashed with a strange luster. More than 10 times. Just because he changed his magic weapon. The power is too strong. Jian Wushuang was extremely excited. When I fought with the Star Sea Saint, I used all my trump cards and fully performed the Samsara sword formation. However, the Samsara sword formation must be a sword formation, and it must be performed by my own standard magic weapon. I guided the supreme sword essence of the Blood Mountain sword, but I couldn't increase the power of the Samsara sword formation, so the power of the Samsara sword formation couldn't threaten the Star Sea Saint. But it's different now. With these 18-star Luo swords, the power of the 4th level of the reincarnation sword formation will increase by more than 10 times. It won't be weaker than the strongest swordsmanship I use when I fully guide the sword essence. In other words, I should be able to fight Star Sea Saint head-on with this reincarnation sword formation alone. Once I guide the sword essence to fight Star Sea Saint head-on, Star Sea Saint will definitely be no match for me. And this is before my breakthrough. Jian Wushuang clenched his fists tightly. Before his breakthrough, he was confident that he could defeat the Star Sea Saint with the help of the sword formation formed by the 18-star Luo swords combined with his swordsmanship. However, now that he had reached the peak Great Divine Master level and his overall strength had improved a lot, his battle strength should have far surpassed the Star Sea Saint. I've made a breakthrough in my realm and tested the power of the Star Luo sword. My next target is the 5th sword formation of the Samsara sword formation. To get this heavy sword formation, I must first become an Earth-level member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Jian Wushuang muttered. The authority of an Earth-level member was much higher than that of an ordinary member. But to become an Earth-level member, one must first have a certain level of strength. Secondly, one must complete 3 ordinary level 3-star missions alone. Jian Wushuang knew this, so he immediately went to the secret nest number 385. The secret nest was still quite deserted, and few people came here on weekdays. As for Shuedong King, who had been staying with Jian Wushuang all this time, after he exchanged the sacred elixir for treasures from Lord Xianxia, he went into seclusion and never came out, so Jian Wushuang naturally would not disturb him. Moreover, Jian Wushuang was doing a promotion mission, which required him to complete alone. It was useless even with Shuedong King. Jian Wushuang went directly to the counter. Elder Qiu, give me a list of tasks, Jian Wushuang said. Elder Qiu raised his head and glanced at Jian Wushuang, then threw him a token. After taking the token, Jian Wushuang glanced at it briefly, then slowly shook his head. There were not many missions recorded in the token. There were only 2 3-star missions. Although they were 3-star missions, they did not put any pressure on Jian Wushuang at the moment. Moreover, the rewards for these 2 missions were average. It did not interest Jian Wushuang at all. Elder Qiu, can you give me a more detailed list of missions, preferably 3-star missions or above? It doesn't matter if they are not from this territory, Jian Wushuang said. There are indeed only 2 3-star missions around this nest. However, there are many 3-star missions outside this territory. You can see for yourself. Elder Qiu took out a brand new token and handed it to Jian Wushuang. There were many missions recorded on this token. There were more than 200 ordinary 3-star missions. There were enough missions for Jian Wushuang to select. The only regret was that these 3-star missions were far away from the nest. Jian Wushuang had to go through the wormhole inside the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance to get there. Moreover, the wormhole was not open for free, he had to pay a big price for it. These missions. Jian Wushuang carefully browsed through the missions in the token and soon locked onto 3 of them. Just these 3 missions, Jian Wushuang said, and returned the token to Elder Qiu. At the same time, he explained the 3 3-star missions he had taken. One person taking 3 missions at the same time, and they are all 3-star missions? Marquis Jian, what do you want to do? Elder Qiu asked in a deep voice. Nothing. I just think it's troublesome, so I want to complete all 3 promotion missions at the same time, Jian Wushuang said with a smile. Promotion mission? You mean, you want to complete all 3 missions alone? Elder Qiu immediately looked over. Chapter 2965. Promotion mission yes. Jian Wushuang nodded. After hearing Jian Wushuang's answer, Elder Qiu's expression became strange. Elder Qiu was an immortal saint himself. He could tell at a glance that Jian Wushuang was only a divine master. As for the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, even if it was an ordinary 3-star mission, it had to be at least a top-notch false saint. Could it be that this divine master had the battle strength of a first-rate false saint? Of course, Elder Qiu had some doubts in his heart. But what he did not know was that Jian Wushuang's battle strength was far more than that of a false saint. Although he was puzzled, Elder Qiu would not ask too much. He just followed the normal procedure and said, "Heavenly Sword Marquis, there's something you have to remember. It's one thing to complete the promotion mission alone on the way, but in the process of the mission, you need to use the mirror token to record the whole process." Use the mirror token to record the whole process? Jian Wushuang was stunned. Yes, only in this way can the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance determine whether you really completed the promotion mission alone. For example, if your mission is to kill an expert, you don't have to record anything else, but you have to use the mirror token to record the whole process of the battle between you and the expert, said Elder Qiu. Of course, you don't have to worry about it. The images recorded by the mirror spiritual talisman are top secret. No matter what you did or how you did it, no one will know about it. The only thing we need to know is whether you completed the task alone. I understand. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. He could barely accept the fact that it was just a chance of a fierce battle. After all, it was just an ordinary 3-star mission, so it should not pose much of a threat to him now. He did not need to use all his strength to expose his many trump cards. Go! Elder Qiu waved his hand. Jian Wushuang immediately set off. The Green River Realm was an area far away from the number 385 nest in the Endless Territory. Jian Wushuang had paid a price to come here through the wormhole of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. In an ancient sect. Whoosh! A majestic sword light mercilessly slashed down. The sect-protecting formation that had protected the sect for a long time was split in half by the sword light, and the power of the divine power spread wildly. After that, a human figure charged into this sect like lightning. Who is it that can break into my Green River Palace? You're courting death. Kill him. The entire Green River Palace instantly stirred up, and a large number of Green River Palace experts rushed out, including the 5 immortal saints within the Green River Palace. Amongst these 5 immortal saints, one was a peak false saint. The 5 of them joined hands and blocked in front of that human figure. But in the end, that human figure only slashed out with a tyrannical sword. That sword easily crushed the void, crushing everything. It also crushed the combined attack of the 5 immortal saints from the Green River Palace. The 5 immortal saints from the Green River Palace were sent flying on the spot. 2 of them even spat out fresh blood. The figure did not have any obstacles. He broke into the inner part of Green River Palace and into the many cultivators under the command of Green River Palace. Finally, he found a brown-haired demonic youth in the crowd. This brown-haired demonic youth was Jian Wushuang's target. It's you. Killing intent flashed in Jian Wushuang's eyes. He swung his Blood Mountain sword like an electric arc and chopped off the head of the demonic youth. After doing all this, Jian Wushuang soared into the sky and left. No one from the Green River Palace dared to stop him. Among the 3 3-star missions that Jian Wushuang had received, the first mission was to kill a great divine master under the protection of the Green River Palace. Mission completed. In the dark and cold void. Phew! A sorry figure, with his life the fastest speed in that crazy escape. This figure was a young man with fair skin and a thin and weak figure. The aura that this young man exuded was quite tyrannical. He was a peak false saint and his combat strength was not ordinary. However, at this moment, he was being hunted like a stray dog. It was Jian Wushuang who was chasing him. How can I be found when I have hidden in this place? And the person who found me, obviously just a deity, but combat strength, how can be so strong? The young man's face was aghast, and his heart was full of shock. He has been hiding here for a long time, and no one has found him for so many years. But today, not only has someone found him, but the god who found him. It was terrible. It was indeed terrifying. He was clearly only at the deity realm, but the moment he attacked, he brought along endless sword intent and unleashed a shocking sword attack that crushed the young man. The second sword attack had severely injured the young man. If it were not for the fact that his life-saving methods were not bad, he would have died under the second sword attack. But now, although he was still alive, he was being pursued by that divine master. He's faster than me. No, no. The young man was completely terrified. As Jian Wushuang closed the distance between them, his fear gradually turned into despair. In the end, Jian Wushuang caught up with him and attacked again. This time, Jian Wushuang used the Samsara sword formation. The terrifying Samsara sword formation shattered the young man's divine body with just one attack. The second task was completed. It was a vast and boundless arena. This arena was more than enough for two powerful true saints to fight on. There were countless spectators around the arena. On the arena, Jian Wushuang, who was wearing a grey robe and a grey mask, pointed his long sword and easily defeated a peak divine master in front of him, Heavenly Sword Marquis, the 88th victory. As the host announced the result, the spectators around the ring burst into cheers. Heavenly Sword Marquis! Heavenly Sword Marquis! Countless people were calling his name. However, Jian Wushuang's expression was extremely cold. Soon, he saw his 89th opponent enter the ring. This opponent was also a divine master, but he was a rare invincible divine master. However, in the end, the invincible divine master still lost to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang easily won 89 battles, followed by the 90th and 100th battles. In less than 3 days, Jian Wushuang had won 100 battles. The third mission, to win 100 battles in the star battlefield, was also successfully completed. This mission was the easiest among the 3 3-star missions that Jian Wushuang had received, but the reward was not low. Chapter 2966, Earth-Level Members Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, Nest Number 385. Wearing a mysterious grey mask, Jian Wushuang came to the old man again. Hand in the task. Jian Wushuang took out his identity token and the mirror token that had recorded 3 tasks. Heavenly Sword Marquis, you've completed all 3 tasks? And all of them alone? Elder Qiu looked at Jian Wushuang in astonishment. The process of the task is in the mirror token. Jian Wushuang said calmly. I'm not qualified to look at the mirror token. How about this? You wait here for a while. I'll pass the mirror token to the high-level experts of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance to make a judgment, Elder Qiu said. How long will it take? Jian Wushuang asked. Not long, 3 days at most, Elder Qiu said. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. He was not in a hurry for 3 days. Jian Wushuang immediately waited in the nest. 3 days passed quickly, and the results came out. Heavenly Sword Marquis, this is your new identity token. From today on, you are an Earth-level member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, and you have the authority of an Earth-level member. Elder Qiu handed an identity token to Jian Wushuang. His expression was somewhat humble. What a joke. A divine master could become an Earth-level member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Even a fool would know how great this divine master was. How could a mere person in charge of a secret lair compare to such a task? After receiving the identity token, Jian Wushuang was quite delighted. He immediately headed straight for the treasure pavilion. Watching Jian Wushuang leave, Elder Qiu could not help but sigh. A divine master can complete 3 ordinary 3-star missions alone and become an Earth-level member. Heavenly Sword Marquis is definitely one of the top super geniuses in the divine beginning world. He is definitely qualified to enter the 3 palaces and become the core genius disciple of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. But the strange thing is, even though he is so talented, why is there no instruction from above? Elder Qiu thought it was a little strange. The mirror token that Jian Wushuang used to complete the mission was judged by the higher-ups of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. If Jian Wushuang could complete 3 3-star missions alone, even the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance would be eager to recruit such a super genius. However, the result he got was only that Jian Wushuang could become an Earth-level member without any instructions. It was as if the heaven-cleaving alliance did not care about such a super genius at all. Maybe there are other factors. Elder Qiu sighed and did not think much about it. The golden light figure in Treasure Pavilion, which was Lord Xianxia, gathered in front of Jian Wushuang. Lord Xianxia. Jian Wushuang bowed respectfully. Heavenly Sword Marquis, congratulations on becoming an Earth-level member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. You can also enjoy the authority of an Earth-level member here, Lord Xianxia said. Lord Xianxia, I want the 4 forms of the Samsara sword formation that I mentioned to you before, Jian Wushuang said directly. Yes, the 4 forms of the sword formation require 15 million saint pills with the privilege of being an Earth-level member, Lord Xianxia said. Jian Wushuang was prepared and immediately took out an interspatial ring. Lord Xianxia took the interspatial ring, scanned it with his consciousness, and nodded slightly. Wait here. Someone will deliver the 4 forms of the sword formation to you in 10 days. Thank you, Jian Wushuang thanked him, but his expression suddenly changed. He remembered the origin of Lord Xianxia. Lord Xianxia was the only weapon spirit in the Treasure Pavilion of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. He was knowledgeable and could identify any treasure as quickly as possible. He had obtained a special treasure a long time ago, but he had never appraised it. Sir Xianxia, I have a treasure here. I hope you can appraise it, Jian Wushuang said. Take it out. Sir Xianxia appeared very calm. Jian Wushuang flipped his palm, and a baby-sized black exotic beast statue covered in the power of destruction rules appeared in his hand. Jian Wushuang had obtained this black exotic beast statue in the secret realm of the Pill Sun Sacred World. He had obtained 3 precious treasures, including the cloud pattern armor. He had used the token that contained teleportation to save his life in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. Only the Black Beast statue remained. Jian Wushuang had always thought that the Black Beast statue was extraordinary, but he did not know what it was. Now, Jian Wushuang brought the Black Beast statue to Lord Xianxia. Lord Xianxia glanced at the Black Beast statue with a strange look in his eyes. You can get such a treasure. Lord Xianxia's voice was obviously a little surprised. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang understood that this treasure was indeed extraordinary. Otherwise, Lord Xianxia would not have said so. Lord Xianxia, this treasure. Jian Wushuang had just opened his mouth. This treasure has some history. Under normal circumstances, a little guy like you would not have had the chance to come into contact with such a treasure. It's also a fortuitous opportunity for you to get it. Lord Xianxia praised, I can help you appraise this statue, but the cost of appraising it is relatively high. How much? Jian Wushuang asked. 5 million sacred elixirs. Lord Xianxia stretched out 5 fingers. Jian Wushuang was shocked. 5 million sacred elixirs just to appraise this treasure. When appraising the Earth Divine Fruit, Lord Xianxia only said that he would take 500,000 sacred elixirs. The difference between 500,000 and 5 million was 10 times. Could it be that the real value of the statue was 10 times higher than that of the Earth Divine Fruit? How about it? Do you want me to appraise it for you? Lord Xianxia looked at him. Yes. Jian Wushuang nodded. 5 million sacred elixirs was not a big number for him. He wanted to know what the Black Beast statue was. Sir Xianxia, this is 5 million sacred elixirs. Jian Wushuang took out an interspatial ring again. This time, he completed 3 3-star missions in one go and received a lot of rewards. In addition to the remaining sacred elixirs, he still had a lot of them, so he could easily take out 5 million sacred elixirs. After taking the interspatial ring, Sir Xianxia said directly, this Black Beast statue originated from a top special life form in the beginning divine world, the Destruction Beast God. Destruction Beast God? Jian Wushuang was surprised. It has been many years since the divine beginning world was born. During this long time, countless creatures have been born. Chapter 2967. Destruction Beast God statue. Among the endless creatures, there are all kinds of bloodlines and races. In the absolute beginning divine realm, the 4 divine races are the most famous. They can be called the 4 most powerful races with very strong bloodlines. However, although the bloodlines of the 4 divine races are strong, they are still made up of a great race. In the absolute beginning divine realm, the special life forms have the highest bloodlines or life levels, Lord Xianxia said. Jian Wushuang's heart skipped a beat. It was not the first time he had heard of a special life form. What is special about a special life form? It is unique between heaven and earth. Their innate talent cannot be matched by ordinary bloodlines. Even the most ordinary special life form can be dozens or even hundreds of times stronger than human cultivators if they are in the same realm as humans. And among these unique creatures, there are some famous ones. Among them is the Destruction Beast God. This Destruction Beast God was born very early in the absolute beginning divine realm. It has already fallen. Although it has fallen, no one dares to forget how terrifying it is. The Destruction Beast God was born for destruction. It is a favored child of the law of destruction. Since it was born, it had an extremely high level of understanding of the law of destruction. Moreover, this kind of understanding makes it so that it doesn't need to cultivate. As it grows, it will naturally improve. The Destruction Beast God can completely comprehend the destruction rules as soon as it reaches adulthood and become the master of the destruction rules, Sir Xianxia said. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang was shocked. He could completely comprehend a complete destruction rule as soon as he reached adulthood and become the master of the destruction rules? This talent! No wonder it can be called the master of the destruction rules, Jian Wushuang exclaimed. After all, he was a perfect chaotic creature, and his life level was far above that of many special creatures. However, even he did not have the ability to become a rule master when he reached adulthood. He also needed to cultivate and improve himself slowly. The natural talent of the Destruction Beast God was simply terrifying. Many years ago, the Destruction Beast God roamed the divine beginning world with astonishing combat strength and left a great reputation. However, because it was too talented in the destruction rules, some experts refined treasures based on its divine body and even left behind its corpse, scales, and bones. These treasures all contained the destruction rules. At the same time, there are people who refine special treasures to comprehend the destruction rules, such as stone tablets and statues, which are imitated from the divine body of the Destruction Beast God. However, they can only imitate its actions, but not its God. The statue you are taking out is imitated by the Destruction Beast God. The charm contained in it is probably less than 1,000th of that of the Destruction Beast God at its peak, Sir Xianxia said. Is that so? Jian Wushuang understood and frowned. It's only 1,000th of its charm, but it still contains such a strong power of destruction rules? Of course it's strong. Lord Xianxia smiled faintly. The Destruction Beast God, at its peak, is on par with the top super existences in the divine beginning world. It can be said to be one of the strongest people in the divine beginning world. Even if it's only 1,000th of its charm, it's enough for many powerful immortal saints to study it for a long time. The statue in your hand is definitely a once-in-a-lifetime treasure for cultivators who have comprehended the destruction rules. The Earth Divine Fruit is much more useful for cultivators who have comprehended the Earth rules, so its value is naturally more shocking. Jian Wushuang was delighted. He knew that the Black Beast statue was extraordinary. Now it seemed that it was indeed so. I didn't expect that the Black Beast statue would be the most precious of the 3 special treasures from the secret realm, Jian Wushuang murmured. Heavenly Sword Marquis, the Destruction Beast God statue should be of little use to you. You can choose to sell it to me. As for its value, I can give you 500 million sacred elixirs with your authority as an Earth-level member. How about that? Lord Xianxia looked over. 500 million. Jian Wushuang's heart skipped a beat. The Divine Earth Fruit had only sold for 100 million sacred elixirs, and in the end, it was split equally between him and Shuedong King. However, the Destruction Beast God statue could sell for 500 million sacred elixirs. He owned 500 million sacred elixirs alone. There's no rush for this statue. Jian Wushuang shook his head. I'm still weak, and I've already obtained most of the resources I need. I won't exchange for this statue for the time being. When I need to exchange for sacred elixirs, it's not too late for me to do so. In that case, I won't force you. Go. Lord Xianxia waved his hand. Jian Wushuang bowed respectfully to Lord Xianxia, then turned and left. After coming out of the secret nest, Jian Wushuang was still quite excited. With the Destruction Beast God statue worth 500 million sacred elixirs, I have a huge amount of money in my hands. I must use this money in the most reasonable way to maximize its value. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands. There's no rush. I just reached the realm of peak Great Divine Master not long ago, and now I have the four-layered sword formation of the Samsara sword formation. Let's see the power of the four-layered sword formation first. Jian Wushuang immediately found a hidden void. Jian Wushuang temporarily opened a cave mansion in the void, and then he began to comprehend the fifth-layered Samsara sword formation. The first level of the Samsara sword formation was called the Horn of Heaven, the second level of World Sink, the third level of Samsara Drunk, and the fourth level of Ice and Snow World. The fifth level of the sword formation was called Saint Slaying. Jian Wushuang did not know why Sword Master Tongxin named the fifth level of the sword formation. However, one thing was that the power of the fifth level of the sword formation was much stronger than the fourth level of the sword formation. It was a completely different concept, the difference between heaven and earth. Of course, the power of the fifth sword formation was so strong that it was naturally more complicated and difficult to comprehend. Most importantly, it had a higher requirement for the comprehension of the Samsara rule. After Jian Wushuang comprehended it, he soon learned that if he wanted to truly use the fifth sword formation, his comprehension of the Samsara rule had to be at least at the true saint level. A true saint was not an ordinary false saint. Jian Wushuang's comprehension of the space-time rule and the reincarnation rule was only at the false saint level. He had just reached the true saint level, but there was still a big gap between him and a true saint. Chapter 2968. 80 years. I didn't expect the fifth sword formation to have such a high requirement for the reincarnation rule. Jian Wushuang frowned slightly. His control of the fourth level of the reincarnation sword formation, the world of ice and snow, had long been perfect, so he thought he should be able to control the fifth sword formation. But in the end, he was still far from comprehending the Samsara rules. Even though he had already obtained the fourth level of the sword formation, his comprehension of the Samsara rules did not meet the requirements and he could not use it. There's no rush. I have nothing to do now anyway. At most, I'll go into seclusion for a period of time. When my comprehension of the Samsara rules reaches the true saint level and meets the requirements, it won't be too late for me to come out of seclusion. Jian Wushuang's eyes flashed with a light, but he had already made up his mind. On the same day, he immediately went to the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance to meet Sir Xianxia. He spent a lot of sacred elixirs and exchanged for a lot of treasures from the treasure pavilion that were of great help in comprehending the Samsara rules. After that, he began his seclusion. This time, he was obviously not going to stop until he displayed the fifth level of the Samsara sword formation. His comprehension ability was extremely high, and he had a total of 3 heaven-sealing diagrams in his hands. As long as he calmed his heart to comprehend, his comprehension of the laws would increase tremendously. Now that he had exchanged for a lot of consumable treasures from the treasure pavilion to improve his comprehension of the Samsara laws, his improvement speed was naturally faster and more frightening. The further he went in comprehending the rules, the more difficult it became. Especially after reaching the level of the Immortal Saint, it was extremely difficult to make even a small amount of progress, let alone a big improvement. For ordinary cultivators, even some genius experts, it would definitely take a long time to raise the comprehension of a rule from the ordinary false saint level to the true saint level. It would take at least thousands of years, at most tens of thousands of years. However, Jian Wushuang, it did not take that long. In just 80 years, Jian Wushuang's comprehension of the reincarnation rule had reached the true saint level as he wished. This was because during these 80 years, he had spent a lot of energy to improve his divine power and his comprehension of the space-time rule and sword principle. Otherwise, it would not have taken him 80 years. Jian Wushuang stood calmly in the void. In front of him was a vast mountain range. With a slight wave of his hand, streams of cyan light immediately rose up. These cyan lights were stargaze swords, which had reached the level of a top-grade third-grade holy treasure. A total of 18 stargaze swords were lined up side by side. Condense. As Jian Wushuang uttered the word, the 18 stargaze swords immediately condensed together at the fastest speed. In an instant, rumble and earth-shaking rumble sounded, and a huge spiral tunnel that emitted the power of endless reincarnation rules appeared between heaven and earth. This spiral tunnel was like the reincarnation tunnel that led to reincarnation. It was mysterious, vast, and unfathomable. However, right at this reincarnation tunnel, a dazzling green light suddenly shot out. This green light was extremely long, and it brought along a gigantic green tail. It was at least tens of meters long, but its volume was not big. The green light was extremely fast, so fast that it was inconceivable. In the blink of an eye, it had penetrated through the void in front of it, and finally, it struck a towering mountain in the distance. Bang! A hole was immediately pierced through the middle of the mountain, but the cyan lights came out from the other end of the mountain and continued to hit the next mountain. Bang! 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 A series of explosions sounded. The bright cyan light pierced through a total of 8 giant mountains in an instant, and its power slowly dissipated. Jian Wushuang, who had seen all of this, had an unprecedented glint in his eyes. As expected, the 5th level of the sword formation is much stronger than the 4th level. It's worth the 80 years of hard work I put in to improve the reincarnation rule. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands, feeling extremely excited. The power of the 4th level of the reincarnation sword formation, the world of ice and snow, was already extraordinary. It was comparable to the most powerful absolute arts created by many peak false saints. As for the 5th level of the sword formation, the Saint Slayer, its power was definitely more than 10 times that of the world of ice and snow, or even more. Without a doubt, the power of the 5th level of the sword formation was definitely comparable to the most powerful absolute arts created by true saints. In Jian Wushuang's opinion, the 5th level of the sword formation was even slightly stronger than the most powerful absolute arts created by the 1-star peak true saint Star Sea Saint who had fought with him before. It was slightly stronger. When my realm had not broken through and the reincarnation sword formation had not been greatly improved, I could face the Star Sea Saint head-on. Now that my realm has broken through, the key point is that the 18 underworld blood divine swords in the reincarnation sword formation have all been replaced by the Star Luo sword. Their power has soared. Previously, I could only use the 4th sword formation, but now, I can use the 5th sword formation. In addition, over the past 80 years, I have improved in the rules and sword principle. Who among the rank 1 true saints can stop me now? Let alone a rank 1 true saint, even if I were to encounter an ordinary rank 2 true saint, I'm afraid I can still defeat him now. A mere divine master was able to defeat a rank 2 true saint. This was simply inconceivable to others, but it was not impossible for Jian Wushuang, who was a perfect chaotic creature. Unfortunately, although my strength has improved a lot over the past 80 years and my divine power has reached the limit of a divine master, I have not been able to directly break through to the saint level. Jian Wushuang sighed quietly. After all, divine masters and immortal saints were 2 different concepts. Of course, Jian Wushuang was eager to break through. Previously, he had cultivated all the way because his comprehension of sword principle and rules far exceeded his own realm. Therefore, as long as he had accumulated his divine power to the limit, he could naturally break through. It had always been the case. But now that he had reached the limit of the divine master realm, he found that it was not the case. Now, although he had accumulated his divine power to the limit, he did not directly break through to the saint realm. It was not because he did not want to, but because he could not do it. If an ordinary cultivator's understanding of Tao and comprehension of Tao reached my level, he could easily break through to the saint realm. But I seem to be different. Now, whether it's my understanding of Tao, my comprehension of rules, or even all kinds of methods, I'm far better than an ordinary immortal saint, but I can't break through. I feel that I'm still lacking something, Jian Wushuang muttered to himself. He knew that what he lacked was not only an opportunity but also something else. In other words, he still had room for improvement. Chapter 2969, Shuedong King's good friend. No rush, take your time, Jian Wushuang said with a faint smile. It had been less than 300 years since he was born. It was incredible that he had reached the limit of a divine master in such a short period of time. The immortal saint was so much stronger than a divine master. How could he break through so easily? Jian Wushuang was also very patient. However, after controlling the 5th level of the Samsara sword formation, Jian Wushuang did not plan to continue his closed-door cultivation. Let's go and do the mission, Jian Wushuang muttered. Based on his own judgment, his current battle strength should be comparable to a second-rank true saint, and this strength was already the threshold of the heaven-grade members of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Of course, Jian Wushuang wanted to become a Heaven-grade member of the Heaven-cleaving Alliance as soon as possible. In order to become a Heaven-grade member, he had to complete 3 Earth-grade 3-star missions alone. Jian Wushuang had never really encountered Earth-grade missions, especially 3-star Earth-grade missions. He did not know how difficult the missions were, so he did not dare to be too careless. Shuedong King. Jian Wushuang took out a token and began to send a message. Brother Heavenly Sword Marquis, are you not in closed-door cultivation? Shuedong King quickly replied. Yes, I just came out of closed-door cultivation. I want to ask you what you have been doing recently. Jian Wushuang smiled and communicated with Shuedong King. Shuedong King was a good friend of his and they had a certain friendship. They had completed the mission to kill the 3 Shadow Saints and obtained the Divine Earth Fruit. After selling the fruit to Lord Xianxia, Shuedong King had obtained 50 million sacred elixirs. He had used the 50 million sacred elixirs to exchange for many secret skills and cultivation treasures, and his strength had improved a lot. In the 80 years that Jian Wushuang had been cultivating in seclusion, Shuedong King had also completed 3 ordinary 3-star missions and become an Earth-level member of the Heaven-cleaving Alliance. I had completed 1 Earth-level 1-star mission before, and he brought me to join a small team. Our team has just received a 3-star Earth-level mission. Brother Heavenly Sword Marquis, why don't you join us? Shuedong King said. 3-star Earth-level mission? Jian Wushuang's heart stirred. What he thought really came true. He was now a bit curious about an Earth-level 3-star mission. He did not know how difficult and deep the mission was. The best way was to join hands with someone to complete a 3-star mission. It turned out that Shuedong King had accepted an Earth-level 3-star mission with someone and had even taken the initiative to invite him. Sure, where are you? Jian Wushuang asked. Shuedong King immediately sent his location to Jian Wushuang, who immediately rushed over. This was a relatively remote territory in the Endless Territory. A total of 7 figures were gathered in a great canyon. Most of the 7 figures were wearing grey robes and masks, and all of them had powerful auras. Even the weakest one was at the peak false saint level, and 2 of them were even more powerful true saints. Whoosh! Without wearing a mask, Shuedong King stood up. Captain, I just contacted a good friend of mine and told him that we're about to complete a 3-star Earth rank mission. He's on his way here right now, Shuedong King said. The captain of this team was a tanned man over 2 meters tall, and his aura was extremely violent. This burly man carried a huge axe on his back. Hearing the words of the Shuedong King, this burly man nodded slightly. This mission is quite special. Not only is there a 2-layered mission, but the most important thing is that the reward for this mission is much more than the same 3-star Earth rank mission. It's almost 10 times more. Such a high reward mission is naturally more dangerous. We naturally have to be more careful. The stronger the squad, the better. Now that there's an expert interested in joining, it's naturally the best. Oh right, how's your good friend's strength? Stronger than mine, Shuedong King said directly. Oh. The valiant man's eyes lit up. The other members of the squad at the side also looked over. All of the experts in their team were Earth-rank members of the Heaven-cleaving Alliance. Their strength was also very impressive. Even the weakest of them was a peak false saint. And Shuedong King's strength should be second only to those 2 true saints in the team. His battle strength was almost on par with that of the weakest true saint. Now that Shuedong King himself said that his good friend was stronger than him, did that not mean that his friend had the battle strength of a true saint? If there really is an expert at the true saint level joining us, then our team's lineup will increase by quite a bit, and our chances of completing this mission will be even greater, the tough man said with a smile. My friend has already left. He will arrive here soon, Shuedong King said. In that case, let's wait for him here, the tough man said with a smile, appearing to be very patient. The 7 people of the team were waiting quietly in the valley. Half a day later, a figure in a grey robe, wearing a grey mask, and emitting a dark aura rushed over from a distance. Soon, he appeared in front of the 7 people in the valley. Ha ha, brother of the Heavenly Sword Marquis. Shuedong King laughed and immediately came forward to greet him. Shuedong King, Jian Wushuang said, and he also looked at the other people in the team. He found that the other 6 members of Shuedong King's team, including the 2 stronger true saint experts, were looking at Jian Wushuang coldly. Shuedong King, is this the good friend you mentioned before? The tough man, who was the team leader, asked. Yes, he is my good friend, Heavenly Sword Marquis, Shuedong King said with a smile. However, the members of the team could not smile because they had already sensed the aura that Jian Wushuang was exuding. Divine Master. Yes, the aura that Jian Wushuang was exuding was only at the Divine Master level. It could not be helped. He was a Divine Master. Although the black stone that Xianxia Daoist refined for him could change his divine power aura and increase his divine power aura by 2 levels, it was only effective for those below the Immortal Saint level. Right now, the black stone was completely unable to make him emit the aura of the Immortal Saint. A mere Divine Master, of course, was nothing in the eyes of the 7 people in this squad. Shuedong King, are you playing with us? You want a Divine Master to join our squad? Shuedong King, are you joking? Shuedong King, give us an explanation. Cold voices rang out one after another, and the gazes these people used to look at Shuedong King turned cold. Shuedong King's expression changed, but he immediately said, everyone, don't misunderstand. I have no intention of fooling you. This good friend of mine is indeed only at the Divine Master level, but his combat strength is extremely outstanding. Chapter 2970. 3 moves. Is he very powerful? The other 6 members of the team looked at each other in dismay, but their eyes were still cold. Humph. A low humph suddenly sounded. It was the team leader, the tough man. Shuedong King, you know how dangerous this mission is. With our team's current lineup, it's uncertain whether we can complete this mission safely. Do you want us to bring a burden with us at this time? The tough man said. Burden? Jian Wushuang wore a strange expression under his mask. Captain. Shuedong King was also anxious. You have to believe me. The brother of the Heavenly Sword Marquis is indeed very strong. Otherwise, he wouldn't have become an Earth-level member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. An Earth-level member? The 6 people in the team immediately looked at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang smiled and took out his identity token. He really is an Earth-level member. A Divine Master became an Earth-level member? How is that possible? It's impossible. He must have completed 3 ordinary 3-star missions of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance in some special way. Otherwise, a Divine Master like him would never have completed 3 ordinary 3-star missions alone. The few people in the team immediately began to doubt. They had no choice but to doubt. One had to know that they were all Earthrank members. They had all completed 3 ordinary 3-star missions alone. Even if it was only an ordinary mission, once one reached 3-star, the difficulty coefficient would greatly increase. Even a peak false saint would have to be very careful in order to have any hope of completing it. How could a reverent god have the ability to complete such a mission? The people in the team did not believe it. At this time, the tough man stepped forward and said, Shuedong King, you have joined our team for a long time. Since you have been doing well in our team, I can give you some face and take a step back. Chow. Captain. A person immediately walked out. Heavenly Sword Marquis. The tough man stared at Jian Wushuang. I'll give you a chance to fight with Chow. As long as you can survive 3 rounds without getting hurt, we'll recognize your strength. Otherwise, you'd better leave. 3 rounds? Sure. Jian Wushuang smiled, not caring about it. He knew that with his Divine Master realm, it was not difficult for him to avoid suspicion, so he was mentally prepared. In the void in the center of the valley, Jian Wushuang and Chow were facing each other at a certain distance. The other members of the team were watching from not far away. Chow, make sure you don't kill this little guy. Yeah, he's a good friend of the Shuedong King. Give him some face and don't kill him. Hurry up and get rid of him. The peak false saints in the team were still smiling casually. Jian Wushuang revealed a playful smile under the mask. As for Chow, his eyes were extremely cold. Kid, don't worry. For the sake of the Shuedong King, I won't kill you. But I'll let you know that there's an insurmountable gap between a Divine Master and a peak false saint. As soon as Chow finished his words, his figure suddenly rushed out. Chow seemed to be quite thin and weak, but as soon as he moved, his violent aura burst out and instantly transformed into an ancient fierce beast that charged at Jian Wushuang. When he appeared in front of Jian Wushuang, he formed a claw with one hand. He directly slashed at the void. It was as if the void was about to be completely torn apart. Jian Wushuang could clearly see 5 scarlet rays of bloodlight attacking his face. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly, formed a fist with his right hand, gathered divine power, and then stretched it out. Bang! A low sound of collision was heard. Ah Chao suddenly shook his body. His right palm was a little numb and even slightly painful. He looked at Jian Wushuang in surprise and then pounced forward again. This time, he used 2 palms at the same time. The 2 palms cut through the void, bringing with them 2 scarlet flowing lights. It was like a gorgeous meteorite cutting through the void. However, the meteorite looked unusually cold. Jian Wushuang's body swayed slightly. With the help of the space-time rule, he had dodged to the side and easily dodged Ah Chao's 2 claws. After 2 consecutive attacks, Jian Wushuang had also received 2 attacks from Ah Chao. At this time, before Ah Chao could launch a 3rd attack, Jian Wushuang took the initiative to attack. He also launched an ordinary punch. However, this punch contained not only his extremely powerful divine power but also a large amount of the power of the reincarnation rule. One had to know that his current comprehension of the reincarnation rule had already reached the true saint level. Bang! It was clearly an ordinary punch, but it was magnified at a terrifying speed in the void. In the end, it even covered half of the void. The terrifying might completely covered Ah Chao within. Facing such might, even a peak false saint like Ah Chao had a hint of shock in his eyes. Next, he sank into the might that filled the sky, and a large amount of divine power continuously scattered. It took a long time for Ah Chao to break free from the power, but he looked a bit embarrassed. After breaking free, Ah Chao did not continue to attack. Instead, he retreated to the side of the void. He looked at Jian Wushuang with a serious look instead of contempt, but he was more shocked. The other members of the team who were watching the battle around the battlefield were laughing, but now they could not laugh. They looked at Jian Wushuang in shock. 3 moves. Yes, Jian Wushuang had only exchanged 3 moves with Ah Chao. However, in these 3 moves, 2 moves, Ah Chao was the one who initiated the attack, but Jian Wushuang easily blocked or neutralized it. In the last move, Jian Wushuang took the initiative to attack, forcing Ah Chao into a sorry state. Although Ah Chao did not have the time to use all of his strength, judging from the 3 exchanges, this good friend of Shuedong King and the Divine Master in front of him, although he was only at the Divine Master level, his battle strength was indeed extraordinary. At the very least, he should be at the peak false saint level. Can a Divine Master really contend with a peak false saint? Genius. Heavenly Sword Marquis must be a very great genius. To be able to fight against a dynasty for 3 rounds without falling behind, his strength is not considered weak. Previously, these people thought that Jian Wushuang, a divine master, would be a burden to their team, so they did not agree. But now,